If you see me disappear, you'll know.
Okay, good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of April 22nd, 2020 is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and the health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Design Review Board meeting is being conducted virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes and to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online on the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by visiting our city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The appeal application is also available online. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Minas is absent. Board Member Smith?
Present.
Board Member Simonian?
Present.
Board Member Chagayan?
Present.
And Chair Welch?
Present.
The agenda for the April 22nd regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on April 19th, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the city's website with the staff report on April 22nd. I apologize, it was a week ago today. The approval of the minutes for the Design Review Board meeting from February 25th, 2021 is up for discussion and approval if the board wishes.
Do any of the board members have any comments to make on the minutes? Hearing none, could somebody make a motion to approve?
I move to approve those minutes. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Chagayan. In terms of roll call, Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Chagayan?
Yes.
Board member, we're going back to commissioners, but board member Simonian?
Yes.
And Chair Welch?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-0 to approve the minutes. We have no speakers under oral communications, no callers, that is. And which brings us to board and commission member comments. Any comments from the DRB? None?
No.
And we can proceed then to the review calendar. We have no items under old business, and we have one item under the new business. So at this point, I would like to turn the meeting either over to Chair Welch or to the case planner, Ms. Toledo.
Let's go to Ms. Toledo. I can't hear Ms. Toledo. Is she speaking? I think she's still on mute.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Good evening, board members. The case number is PDR 2012538 located at 1246 Justin Avenue. The project location is it's in the Northwest Glendale area, north of Glen Oaks, north of Glenwood, south of Kenneth, mid-block between Kenneth and Glenwood on the east side. The lot area is 10,180 square feet. The zone is an R1, floor area ratio district 1. That is low density single family. And the existing use is a 1-story single family house. And it is also developed with a detached 400 square foot garage. And there are 2 existing protected oak trees on or within 20 feet of the site. And I've forwarded you information earlier about that detail, which was actually presented to me earlier today by our urban forestry section. So I did highlight that the plans, you probably noticed, do include a note that indicates that there are no protected trees on the property. However, the applicant will need to update the plans to accurately reflect the oak trees and contact urban forestry. The proposed project involves the demolition of the existing single-family house built in 1923. And they are proposing to develop the property and construct a new 2-story single-family residence with an attached garage. And that would include 1,541 square feet of main living area on the first level, 58 square feet of an enclosed covered entry, 400 square feet of a 2-car garage, and it's attached to the front of the house, and 116 square feet of a patio at the rear, 1,419 square feet of floor area on the new 2nd floor, 2 balconies, one at facing the street and another one at the rear of the property. The one facing the street is 285 square feet, and the one at the rear is 190 square feet. And they are proposing to keep the existing detached garage at the rear, and they intend to convert it in the future to an accessory dwelling unit. So that structure is proposed to remain. The project is exempt from CEQA review. It's a Class 3 new construction. The property does not appear eligible for designation at the federal, state, or local level as it relates to historic. And it is not a historic resource under CEQA. Some photos of the existing property. This is the existing single-family house. It's 1-story with a detached garage. And it's somewhat quite generously deep. It's approximately 70 or so feet deep. And the applicant is proposing photo of the front looking towards the house. Context of the surrounding residential neighborhood. These are properties adjacent to the south. So directly adjacent is a 1-story. Property directly adjacent to the north is 1-story with the dormer at the front. And these homes are across the street are 1-story, directly west. And so the applicant is proposing, as indicated, to develop the property with a new 2-story. And this time the house is situated closer to the front, but more aligned with the adjacent homes at approximately 35 feet from the front property line. The applicant proposes the new garage to be attached to the front. And staff does have concerns regarding the attached garage because it is not consistent with the predominant pattern along Justin Avenue. The majority of the homes have a detached garage and a narrow, say approximately 9 to 10 foot driveway leading from the street to the detached garage at the rear. And also staff has some concerns with the width of the driveway at 20 feet. It appears a bit excessive and again, does not appear to complement the site, nor is it consistent with the prevailing neighborhood pattern. In terms of the landscape, and I'll jump to that later on in my presentation, it appears to complement the site and the neighborhood. They are proposing drought tolerant, low water usage planting, with the exception of the marathon side, which has slightly higher level of water usage. There's an existing hedge, and maybe I'll go back to the photo at the front of the property, kind of parallel to the sidewalk, and that will be removed as part of the project. And the oak tree, you can't really tell from this picture, but there's a ficus hedge along the south side, parallel to the driveway, and that's where the oak tree is located. It's actually, it's somewhat camouflaged, if you will, within the ficus because it blends in with the tall ficus hedge. But there are two trees there. This is the first floor plan. And the second floor plan, as you can see, I've identified the location of the balcony facing the street and the other balcony on the second floor at the rear of the property. And both balconies are located at the edge of the building. And there are some comments or concerns that staff has about that as well, and I will discuss further in the presentation. Here's the roof plan. It's a flat roof, consistent with the contemporary modern design of the home. The front elevations, overall height of the building is 25 feet. And at this point, I'd like to discuss a little bit about the massing. Staff has concerns regarding the mass of the building and the scale and proportions. Considering that they seem to be or appear to be emphasized, especially as viewed from the street facade. The mass does not appear to be appropriate or consistent with the neighborhood predominant development pattern in the neighborhood. The majority of the homes, approximately 92%, are one-story homes. There are a couple of two-story homes in the neighborhood. However, again, the majority is one story. The building's proportions are exceptionally large, especially again as viewed from the street. The new home doesn't appear to transition well into the existing context. As we saw, there are single-family homes on either side of the subject and also across the street. And staff is suggesting a condition that the proportions and transitions of the new home should properly address the site context and the existing one-story development in the neighborhood. The scale and proportions, again, the building's mass and proportions do not appear to fit the site nor the neighborhood. And I'd like to draw your attention to, for example, the garage header, which introduces significant solid void space, which creates more mass at the front facade. And similarly, this is the rear elevation here, but I'd like to draw your attention now to the side facades. The side facades of the house feature long, somewhat blank walls, which appear to be monumental with overbearing forms. As discussed in the design section, it needs to be further articulated, and there are, again, different ways to accomplish that, and I will discuss that further in the design section. However, again, going back to the front facade, it features a thick stucco, and I'll point to it here, this frame that is around the entry, that facade features that thick frame element around the dining room window and on the ground level. And it's a thick overhang above the second floor, which appears again to be exaggerated. The proportions don't appear to appropriately fit the site nor the neighborhood context. So overall, all four sides of the house are not well articulated and have massive building forms that do not thoughtfully take into account the building scale and proportions. So staff has included some suggested conditions for the board to consider as it relates to mass and scale, and to appropriately address the design guidelines as well as the neighborhood. In terms of going back to the roof forms, the flat roof design is consistent with the contemporary nature of the house. Again, however, the roof forms lacks visual interest and appropriate breaks, which could potentially mitigate the home's boxy outline. So we've suggested a condition for the board to consider that additional breaks in the roof should be included to appropriately articulate the building facades. In terms of the design and detailing, again, development features a modern style that employs geometric forms and volumes. The guidelines don't dictate a specific style or does not have a preferred design style. However, new designs should consider the existing context. And so once again, going back to the building's proportions are exaggerated and do not relate well to the site and the neighborhood. And again, especially the front and the side facades where it's most visible from the street. The additional consideration that staff suggests is perhaps introducing additional cladding at appropriate locations throughout the building, the sides and the rear, to provide better distribution of materials, again, to enhance and articulate the building facades and reduce the proportions to appropriately fit the project and the neighborhood. Regarding the front entry, the front entry door facing the street consists of a simple glass single door, which provides access to the 58 square foot enclosed entryway, which leads to the home's main entrance. The roof overhang above the entry appears tall, thick, and monumental. And so for better design integration, and again, consistency with the design guidelines, staff is suggesting a condition to revise the front entry design to appropriately complement the front facade with a more modest entry. As it relates to windows, the project features aluminum nail-in windows recessed within a framed opening with a wood sill underneath, with a sill underneath. The operation of the windows includes both casement and fixed. The proposed windows and the patio glass doors appear to be appropriate considering the contemporary style of the building. However, thoughtful consideration should be given to the window location, the window wall ratio, to avoid significant blank facades that are, again, not articulated. So staff is suggesting a condition for the board to consider introducing more fenestration along the north and south facades at appropriate locations and to submit window sections to depict a typical opening in a stucco clad wall and siding clad wall. Now going back to the balcony locations as it relates to privacy. So staff has some concerns regarding the new balconies, especially the ones on the second floor at the front and rear of the house, which may potentially compromise the privacy of adjoining development. So staff is suggesting to reduce the size of the balconies and relocate them further away from the edge of the house and adjacent properties. Some sections. And I'm going to go into a little detail about the finish materials and color that's included in your packet. And let me go back. Let me know if I'm going too fast. This is a view from the north, and the preceding ones are views from the front. Staff had concerns with the wall at the front, which separates the driveway from the walkway. It's approximately 24 inches high. It should be lower to 18 inches. And staff would suggest a planter as opposed to just a solid wall, if you will. So that would, again, enhance the front area of the house, and also it's consistent with the zoning code. If an 18-inch wall is proposed, it would be a planter that would be allowed in the front setback. And also it would provides, again, more attraction with having plants or flowers that could be planted in that area. This is the color material board, and the project incorporates a combination of stucco and fiber cement siding, cladding material, and some stone coarse stucco finish. Again, fiber cement siding, glass railing, and aluminum windows are proposed throughout. Such materials and proposed color palette, which includes the dark gray and off-white plaster and the brown siding, helps to reinforce the overall contemporary design of the house. Staff is suggesting that the colors shown on the material palette should be accurately depicted on the colored elevations and renderings. And additionally, a condition is included to submit drawing details of all junctions where different materials intersect, including corner details where materials turn the corners. And this is the landscape plan, which I discussed earlier. And they are also proposing a pool at the back of the house. And staff is also suggesting regarding lighting to be incorporated into the design that's consistent with the design of the house, and gutters and downspouts to be clearly depicted on the plan, and also to match the adjacent wall color. So lastly, staff is recommending that the board return the project for redesign subject to the suggested conditions. There are 14, but again, there's one more to consider, which is to accurately show the oak trees on the site and to contact the city's urban forestry for their review and potential conditions or mitigations that they may have. Because again, the location of the trees could potentially be compromised, or the roots of the trees, by the new development. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Ms. Toledo. I see Mr. Simonian has his hand raised, so go ahead, Art.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Toledo, the package indicates that the applicant would like to keep the existing garage in the back and add an ADU.
Yes.
I'm wondering if the garage remains in its current location and is used as a garage, in that case, in the future, could the ADU be placed on above the garage on the second level?
No, that is not consistent with the ADU ordinance.
And so if the garage would be placed in the back, somewhere in the back, wherever in the back, I assume at one of the corners, with these kind of cases where there's a garage in the back, where does the ADU unit typically get placed?
Are you mentioning if they were to convert the existing garage, or just keep that structure there, meaning the garage, without converting it? Did I understand?
Let me rephrase the question. I guess, if there's an existing house and an existing garage, and the garage is placed at the rear of the lot, with these kind of scenarios and an ADU is proposed, where do people usually place the ADU if it can't go above the garage?
It would be at the back of the house, right? Behind the primary building.
So it would almost be like next to the garage, because if you have a 50-foot width lot and you have a garage at one of the corners, it's going to leave you more or less half the lot to work with, and you would place the ADU unit next to it in a sense.
Well, first of all, they wouldn't be, if they're going to keep that building, the use of it or that structure is a garage. So they would not be able to leave it as a garage if they're going to propose, let's say, an attached garage at the front. There's no access to the existing detached garage at the rear, because a driveway needs to lead to something, right? So, and the garage needs to be utilized as a garage. So if they keep it as a garage, they would continue to use that as a garage, or they can convert it, which is what they're proposing to do.
Yeah, and my question was stemming from the fact that, you know, if the idea is to suggest to the applicant to move the garage to the rear of the property someplace in and around the existing garage, I was trying to visualize and understand how an ADU could fit into that program.
It would have to be detached from the existing or from the structure. It would have to be detached. Minimum 5 feet eave to eave.
Understood. So in this hypothetical, in this example, let's say the pool would get much smaller. The garage would, let's say, move more or less where the existing garage is, and there would be an ADU placed at kind of the northeast corner of the lot, 5 feet away from the existing eve to eve clearance. Got it. Thank you.
And just one more item I just wanted to point out. The ADU is shown on the plan for reference only. The board would not approve or make a decision on the ADU. That is something that there's no design review per se for ADUs per the ordinance. But we wanted the board to holistically look at the project, meaning the site plan altogether of what it is that the applicant is proposing. However, again, you wouldn't be making a decision on the ADU. That's a different process.
Okay. Any other board members have questions? Okay. I guess we can move now to the applicant for presentation.
Miss Toledo, is there anything you liked on my house? You just smashed everything I designed. You just pointed everything on a building. You know what? I'm the one who's gonna live in that house, not people who are trying to suggest me how to build my house. I understand I have to follow the design of the neighborhood, but those homes are built from 1920s to 50s. This is the 21st century. What are you guys trying to do? Just build everything, whatever was built 1950s and 60s? Come on. I love Jetsons. What can I say? I want to build a house, a futuristic house. I mean, maybe modern house. You guys just smashed everything I did. I'm the one who's going to live there. So I have no say into anything. I can't have a 2-story house because there's 3-4 2-story houses over there. And you guys are limiting me to build per square foot 30%. What am I supposed to do? What do you? I mean, I think you know what? I'll take some of the suggestions, but everything I did on that house, you said it's not. You and your staff don't recommend. You and your staff is not going to live in my house. I'm the one who's going to live there. So I understand you want me to change some stuff. That's fine. I want to comply with the city, but everything on the house was no good. You want me to build something was built 1950s next door, 21st century? You want to consider that? I don't get it. I mean, just like looks like communist Russia. You have to only wear black and white shirt. That's it. I run from there. Now it's something similar because your stuff doesn't like my house. I don't get it. I mean, there's some stuff I'm not gonna argue. I'll do something, but I like modern home. I thought this was a free country, and this is all the homes are built. God knows how many years now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm just speechless. I can't build my own house the way I like on my own land. You guys have to give me a break. What is this? I don't understand. You guys gonna move forward or backwards? Go back to 1930s and build something or the whole neighborhood. You have to give some color to the neighborhood or upscale the neighborhood. But you guys want to keep it the way it is, like it was built 1950s. One story. If the house is too big, what do you want me to do? You're giving me no options. You give me 30% to build on my lot. I can't build 50% so I can build one story. So you want me to comply with your codes? I'm complying with your codes. You want to comply with the height requirements? I'm complying with the height requirements. Now you're telling me no, the house has to be there's only certain homes in the neighborhood that have 2 stories. I can't build 2 stories because your staff doesn't like 2-story homes. You know, I don't know what to say. I mean, I mean, everything on the house was no good. Everything. You just talked about everything from the windows, stucco, balconies. You don't like my bulky design in the front. Okay, I'll change that. But you can't tell me I can't have modern home. I want to build my house modern. I love modern. I work 8 days a week. I start 1 day early. I work 16 hours a day to build this house. And you guys are telling me, no, my staff doesn't like it. My staff doesn't. Who's your staff? Can I change their mind? Please, I mean, I work too hard. I'm in construction. I build hospitals. I want to build my house the one I want. I want to build my house with my own hands. I want to own something that I can appreciate too. I enjoy my retirement in this house. So this is all I have. And I love modern design. I mean, I don't want to go back into whatever the design the whole neighborhood has. Just give me some break. Cut me some slack. I mean, I'll try to work with you guys, whatever you guys want, but Ms. Toledo doesn't like anything apparently. So I don't know what to do. Just bring the bulldozer and build again. I don't know what to do. Maybe you can design me a house, Ms. Toledo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just so you understand, sir, we're charged with enforcing the design guidelines which are part of the laws of the city of Glendale. So we're not acting, subjectively here. We are trying as best as possible to enforce the laws. And the laws do provide design guidelines that applicants are expected to work within. And among those are many of the points that Ms. Toledo raised. It is not her opinion that is being voiced there. It is her interpretation of the laws. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to hopefully come up with some suggestions and solutions and have a frank discussion about it. We're all professionals on this board, and our purpose is to help guide applicants like yourself. So hopefully we can do that here tonight. So, Ms. Midas, do we have any callers on the item?
Yes, thank you. We do have one caller this evening. Mr. Philip Keller. Mr.
Yes.
Philip Keller, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Hello, good evening, and Mr. Chairman, board members, and city staff. My name is Philip Keller. I'm the representative for the DRB for the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association. I'd like to make a few comments on the property project proposed before you. I won't be too long. I do agree with the staff report on this design analysis. I strongly feel that the massing and scale are incompatible with the existing character of the neighborhood. Its 3,000 square foot house is 70% larger than the neighborhood average, and that should not be overlooked. I think in general, the design is too boxy, particularly a roofline lack of articulation, and the massive garage door facade that goes to the second floor just makes that situation worse. I agree with the other elements noted in the staff report, the front wall, the larger driveway, and so on, needing revision. This is a large lot, over 10,000 square feet. They could easily spread this square footage, even if it were to stay the same, over a one-story layout with plenty of room in the backyard for a pool, garage, and an ADU. There's a house on my street that's got 2 ADUs on a under 7,000 square foot lot. And I think I just wanted to say one thing about the applicant's concern about building a modern house. I think he can build a modern house without problem, but the design and proportionality and massing of the modern design has to fit and match and fit into the neighborhood prevailing character. It can't be in conflict. You can get a modern designed house, but it should fit better in its proportions to the neighborhood. We encourage and support well-designed residential remodels and new constructions, and we support the applicant's pursuit of building the dream home. However, we strongly feel that it needs to be done in a manner that takes into account how the design will impact the neighbors and is more responsible to the spirit of the prevailing scale, massing, and character of the neighborhood. We feel it should be sent back for redesign. I have no doubt that the talented architect with this project can satisfy his client's desires for a modern project while fitting it into the prevailing character of the neighborhood with concerns to massing and scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other callers?
Yes, we do. We have a neighbor, Yamin Galushian. Mr. Galushian, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Yes, hi.
Oh, forgive me. Yes.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to speak for the client who's trying to present his house. I honestly don't see what is the problem with having someone who desires to build a 2-story house. I think that's their business, what they want to do. It's nobody's business, not even any of the neighbors. Especially that on the street, there are other houses which is 2-story. If it was a problem, they should have not let anyone have it, like we had it on our street. I'm not on Justin. But another neighbor was trying to build on our street, and everyone else basically was against it because they thought no house on our street is 2-story. I did not interfere, but I honestly think it's the owner's business what they want to do on their property and nobody else's. As long as he is cooperating with size, you give parameters as to how far it should be from the border, from the fence. If he's complying that, if it's going to be huge, it's huge. That's what you guys are requesting. You know, when you say 5 feet from the fence inwards, and then as far back as the person is willing to go, that's part of it. If he's complying with all that, it should not be anybody's business to say what style, what, if it's going to be 1-story, 2-story. I think it's strictly the owner's business to decide how it's going to be. Even the design, just because he likes something different than you and I like it, it doesn't make it a bad design. So when people reject someone's design, I studied interior design, and I've learned a lot about design. So I find it very sad when someone comes up with a good idea that they'd like, especially that they're going to be living in their house, and someone else is rejecting just because they don't like the design. I mean, who am I to judge what he will like or not like, or he's the one living in it? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Any other callers?
We do not have any other callers.
Okay. Mr. Saturian, do you want to take a couple of minutes to rebut any of the comments that were raised?
Yes, sir. So what I wanna say, when people are asking that the neighborhood has average of 75% less homes, what does that mean? What do you mean by everybody has smaller house? I want to have 5 kids. I mean, what am I? What my right now I have 2 kids. I'm gonna have another 3 kids. Can I have a 3,000 square foot house I can fit my family, or what am I supposed to do? I don't care about the ADU. I don't need that ADU in the back. I'm not gonna rent to anybody. So I can take that AD garage out and put my garage at the front the way I want. There's multiple houses at the Justin that has attached garage to the building. So all I want to say is when the person was saying that I have a lot large enough to build 1 story, no, I don't. I'm pushing my house back 35 feet. Then I have a majority of the land is going to be my new house. I want to have a backyard. I want to have a couple of trees. I want to have a pool. I want to have a space I can put a barbecue or some kind of couple of trees for fruit trees. I mean, I have absolutely no space for that. I don't see in my neighborhood they have 4 or 5 homes that are more than 4 or 5 homes. They're 2 stories. I don't see the issue. I mean, I don't know how I don't know what to do. I mean, this is I think we should move forward. When you're telling me there's laws written, when was this laws written? What year? We're moving forward. We can't just go back and we have to do some amend some stuff. Because just because somebody wrote a law 50 years ago, we're not going to go forward. I'm not talking about this is not a this is not a constitution. This is a law how to build a home. So it's I think I'm not asking you to change the constitution so I can build my house. I own a house in Virginia. I build any ways I want. Nobody can come and tell me what to do. It's my land, my way of building it. So, well, hopefully you guys can be somewhat understanding my situation too, and not be like, I don't know, just understand, please. I mean, let's work together.
Okay, thank you. All righty. With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will move to board member comments. Yes, Board Member Simonian, would you like to go first, or did you have a question? I can't hear you, Art. You're still on mute.
I apologize. I had a question, but I could go first. That's not an issue. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And sorry, I had my mute on. I was actually had a question for Ms. Toledo or staff, which I'd forgotten to ask earlier, and it pertains really to the prevailing pattern of the neighborhood and the garage. I believe that was stated by staff that the prevailing pattern is to have garages in the rear, and I'm wondering if we could get a bit more color on that. Besides contextual pattern, is there something a little more I guess, solid written in the design guidelines or any kind of specifics? And if we could get some more light on that, that'd be great.
I'll pull up that information if you allow me a few minutes.
I think it'll help the applicant also to kind of understand where it's all coming from. So it's a bit of a rhetorical question, I get it, but I think it's important to start off with that and just to take these steps kind of forward as to the mindset.
And Board Member Simonian also, the applicant was made aware of that at the initial stages of the pre-application process. We did mention to them about the concerns that staff did have about the garage location at the front, the mass, the scale, the details, design and details. And so again, we had already discussed this information prior to getting to this point. Jay, I can't hear you.
Yeah, just following up on what Milka said, we also, when we were working with the designer, never said no to a second story, and we never said no to a modern design, because that's not how the board has operated for many years now, and the guidelines don't direct us in that way. But we did talk about many other aspects that I'm sure you'll be discussing. But to answer your question about the garage, the guidelines specifically say that locations of garages should be consistent with the dominant existing garage location pattern. Orient the garage away from the street whenever possible. And that said, that's been the direction that the board has followed, but we've also seen deviations from that depending on designs and the way the garage interacted with the mass of the house. So I think as a guideline, I think the board's generally gone in that direction, but not always. So.
Okay. So are there any other questions from board members before we turn it over to, yes, Board Member Smith, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. Thank you very much, Chair. I have a question, and I'm sorry to ask to reopen the hearing about the color of the glass that faces the street, both on the south and the north bays, and including, of course, the garage. It's not clear in the window schedule or the door schedule what color the glass is. I know it might be opaque, it might be bronze, it could be mirrored. There are all kinds of colors for glass. So I think that would help us understand the facade better. It's unclear in the, it's ambiguous, I think, in the very nice color renderings.
So is this a question for the applicant?
Yes.
Light gray color.
Excuse me?
Light gray.
So the garage door, the front windows, and the front door.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All right, so let's again reclose the public hearing and move on to board member comments. Ms. Chagayan, would you care to go first tonight?
Sure, no problem. First, I want to say thank you to Milka for the comprehensive report, and to the applicant for putting together your package. It's I personally, I don't mind modern and contemporary design. I think architecturally your design of the house is pleasing, and I don't think you should necessarily think that City of Glendale or the Design Review Board is not going to allow you to build 2 stories. Because that's not necessarily the case. I do agree with a majority of the comments from the staff report. I think if you tweak the design, use some tricks, and come up with different solutions, not necessarily redesigning and introducing a different style at all, you will be able to achieve something that's more in line with the guidelines that the city is trying to maintain. And for example, the garage, I know that came up already, and we're discussing whether or not to move it towards the back. I don't think necessarily you have to move it all the way to the back if you find that becomes problematic, but definitely breaking up the mass of that vertical mass on the right hand side is going to help. Breaking up the roof line, it's one big solid plane, that it starts to help eliminate the mass and the boxiness of the house. I think you can still achieve the size of house that you want. You just have to come up with ways to hide that it's so large and up front. I think the balcony choices, either you might consider reducing or moving to maybe a different location that's not, a 285 square foot balcony towards the front is pretty large. I understand you want what you want, but we just have to, as you said, work together and come up with a way to still get what you want, but in a way that, it works for the neighborhood as well. Overall, I mean, I think I see no problem with a modern or contemporary style. I just think it needs to be reworked to better address some of the concerns that you've heard, not only from the report, but from the neighbors that called, or one neighbor that called, and that we are also addressing here. And the side elevations, I don't necessarily think you need to introduce more material cladding. I just think breaking up the mass in itself, is going to help it not feel so massive and boxy. So I don't have anything else to add, but I do agree that it needs to go back to redesign, taking all those things into consideration. But I don't want you to think you can't have a modern home. I think you can have the size home you want. We just need to work on a different solution to get you there. And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Simonian, would you like to go next? You are still on mute.
Apologize again. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate kind of the wholehearted thoughts that the applicant had. I could tell that he feels passionately about his design, and in a way he's insulted that, there's so many issues and so many conditions. So I'm gonna start off with items that I like on that note, just because I know designers, architects, we all have kind of very strong feelings on what we design and what we've kind of accomplished. And so at times it's good to hear the positives first. And so I actually like the design. I like the kind of modern flair to it. I like the sculptural aspects of it. I think especially the left side of the house as the entry and the entry portion of the front, I think is successful and is very unique. And it's not your typical modern stucco frame. It actually has some sculptural aesthetics to it, some three-dimensionality to it, and it's very unique. And so I appreciate the starting point. I think in addition, the way the siding color is used with the stucco and some of the other darker colored stucco and the quality of the windows, etc., are also positive design moves. I think some of that sculptural aesthetics of it really led the architect to make, or the designer to make certain decisions. For example, the entryway, there are several steps that bring the house up. Now those steps are kind of integrated into this sculptural piece of the entry, which is quite nice. But at the same time, it's bringing 4 or 5 steps up, right? So the house is coming out of the ground 2'9", almost 3 feet higher. And then there's steps inside the house that bring you down again, and then additional steps at the rear that take you to the yard level. So the house is raised 3 feet, and I think some of those moves were done, for aesthetics, and I think that could be improved upon. I think to reduce height, you certainly can, just by bringing the building down to grade, you've saved 2'9", 3 feet right there. I think the driveway and its location of the garage is an issue. So as a designer, as an owner, from the beginning, staff gives you pretty strong, I think, cues as to where that preference is for the garage. And if you decide to go otherwise, you got to really work hard, and you got to really swim upstream, and you got to really have a spectacular reason why, and also a very strong design that kind of supports that. And those are pretty high standards, right? And so it might be easier for an applicant to consider the overall battle, you might say, and think it might be maybe worthwhile to pull that garage back a bit. Maybe it doesn't go all the way to the rear, but maybe it actually becomes further back. I don't know. But the kind of bland driveway, the way it's illustrated, certainly doesn't meet the design guidelines, right? So we tend to have some sort of a pattern, or even the existing driveway that's at the site, where it's really two strips with landscaping in the middle, has more defining characteristics. If you plan to have an ADU in the rear at some point, it doesn't sound like you want it, so you're shaking your head, in which case I won't really go into that at the moment. But I have some thoughts on that. I agree with Ms. Chagayan. Also, as far as the side elevations are concerned, I don't think they need much more. I think this design, actually could use smooth plaster versus textured plaster, which is what the renderings illustrate. But besides that, when I'm looking at sheet A 2.0 and I'm looking at the bottom right rendering, and I'm going purely off of the renderings because I think that's the only way you get a holistic idea of this building, because the elevations, you can't really get much out of it because of the sculptural aspects of it. But when I'm looking at the rendering at the bottom right of sheet A2.0, I think it has enough, certainly enough articulation, at least for my taste. Now, in regards to some of the areas that I would think you'd want to improve on to be more consistent with previous projects that have gone through this board, a good starting point, I said, is lowering the building with those steps, working out the garage situation. And then I think I wouldn't really change your style. I think your style is fine. The modern style I would support if you kind of take it to this next level as we're discussing. But your balconies, I think, should be reoriented. I think that front balcony, sculpturally, it looks great. I actually like the architectural components of it, but how practical is it, number one, and how much of a privacy issue does it create for the neighbors? And number three, what sort of a precedent does it set? I think those three hurdles are excessive. And so I would certainly encourage you to rethink that balcony location in the front, and how important is it, and how much are you going to use it? As I indicated in the, and I'm looking at sheet 2.0, lower the left, well, the front facade, I think the left side has such a fun sculptural aspect to it, but the right side seems a bit bland compared to the left side. And I also don't understand quite the reasoning behind the frame around that upper story window and how it's offset. And so there might be some design components to it that I'm not seeing right away, but it just seems as though it doesn't have that same flair. And perhaps you could use that as you're redoing the garage to somehow integrate that language from the left side. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe you're trying to keep it more of a, juxtaposing of the bland versus the sculptural. I think if you're going to do a strong move, such as that planar wall in the front or that division wall between the walkway and the garage, and you've gone through the effort of covering it with a wood veneer, maybe that wood veneer should just come and then go up the building. in a way, it should kind of maybe goes up and then it turns into that horizontal entry stucco piece that you have, right? It just goes up. And so I think there's an opportunity there to, if you're going to use a wall, well, you got to lower it to be with code, but then to integrate it in where it becomes some kind of a feature that is integrated in the building. So I think you could use that to an advantage. Besides that, as far as the two board members that have spoken, I don't think any of us are saying that you can't have a two-story. I don't think we're saying we don't like your design. So I think you gotta just take a deep breath, relax, and use this as an opportunity to improve it. That's it for now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Simone and Board Member Smith.
Hi, thanks so much for recognizing me. I really appreciated both of our colleagues' comments because they made the point clearly and hopefully help the applicant understand what we're doing, which is not our personal opinion. It's applying the design guidelines, which is sometimes challenging. We understand you probably worked with staff, and a lot of things are written in ways that aren't very prescriptive. They suggest what sort of things are recommended without just coming out and saying exactly what is a good outcome in this city. I recognize that your feelings were hurt, and it's understandable. It's a lot of time. I've worked on a lot of situations at university where we make comments, and I think it's important to tell people what's good about a design from the beginning. It's a very strong design as it was described. It's really sculptural. I will say that the balanced asymmetry on the side where the entrance is very well handled, the tension, but then on the other side where it's a ribbon window that isn't all window, and that big surround doesn't share the exciting tension that is set up in the other side. I think it's really important that a property fit into the neighborhood. It doesn't mean, as my colleagues have said, that you can't get a two-story house. The second story may be pushed back. There are all different ways to do that. If you were to push back the second story, it reduces the apparent mass, and it might help this fit in a little bit better. It might be helpful to understand how that teeny tiny house that's there got there. It was built around the time that the street was paved in 1922 by a local jeweler with his young family. They ended up, and the lot was 175 by 170. It was huge. It was like a ranchette or a little farm where you probably grew your own vegetables and had chickens and so forth. He split it shortly thereafter and built the house next door. I think it's on the north side. I get a little disoriented, mostly looking at it on paper. I think that there are lots of ways to achieve what you want while fitting into the neighborhood, and it doesn't mean that you don't get the type of very prominent contemporary design that you want. It just means that it needs to fit in a little bit better. The color of the glass being light gray, I absolutely understand that is your preference. I've worked a lot in commercial construction and design, and it's a little bit commercial looking, so it might not seem so much like a home with gray glass and gray glass over the double garage. I think that something else might work better, even if the garage door were more like the material of the wall and fit in, it might help it not feel so prominent on a street where I counted only 2, I think, front-facing garages. The design guidelines, one of your questions was about when these were adopted. They've been in place for about 10 years, so a lot of houses and properties have been developed before the design guidelines were being applied, and that's how some things may not fit into the neighborhood as well. I have a lot of notes that follow exactly what the design guidelines are. But I do recognize what you're trying to do, and I agree about the side elevations. May not necessarily need windows, but they do need some animation. Otherwise, it seems a little bit like a very large townhome in a community of single-family homes. I agree about the driveway being very wide. The Hollywood-style driveway that's there now, the 2 strips, are really prized by a lot of people. They can make something that's a little hard, a lot of hard surface, feel a little bit softer or more friendly, or even more residential. A little bit more variety of bay depth might impart a little bit more animation on the front. The front door is shown on some plans as being 10 feet high and 42 inches wide, and it looks like it's a commercial, like a Herculite door. Then on another set of plans, I think it's a frame with different recessed glass. So the plans are a little bit uncoordinated. I think that a smaller door, and even consider if you would lower first or a lower height first or second floor. If the second floor didn't have 10-foot clear ceilings, the house might not seem so big on the lot. It's understandable how this felt, but I think also part of it is for you to work with staff and for you to think about how the design guidelines were intended to be interpreted. So unfortunately, you're not handed an answer. It's not a planned community where the city tells you what kind of roof material to use and what the roof pitches are. You get a lot more room to do your dream house, but it needs to fit into the community. So I'm excited to see what you can do with your very strong design principle that you're going with, but fitting into the neighborhood a little bit better so that this house won't look like somebody at a picnic in a gold lame dress. If that makes sense, So I have high hopes, because I can tell that you're from this that maybe you just need more time to look at the design guidelines and work with staff to come up with something that will work, if that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Smith. Okay, I will go ahead and give my comments. And by and large, I am in concurrence with all of my fellow board members. I admit I smiled a little bit when the applicant talked about how he loves the Jetsons, because literally in my comments, I had written down, this looks like a Jetsons architecture. So congratulations, sir, that carried through in your design. So again, I want to reiterate that we have no objections to modern design or second story designs. Our goal here is really helping applicants blend those in, make them work within the neighborhoods that they're being placed into. That's our job as part of our, enforcement of the design guidelines. Again, I personally love modern architecture, and I can appreciate some of the elements that you've done here. I concur with the comments about the left-hand side and the sculptural aspect of it. It works very well in terms of a design, but on the right-hand side, it breaks down more. It's very rectilinear, very boxy, and doesn't really complement it well. And I had the same note as Board Member Simonian about that front wall, that it either should go or somehow be better integrated into that design. It just seemed like it would be something that people would be tripping over, and it really, to me, it didn't really add anything to the design. But I think that you have an opportunity there to do something better with it, to integrate it in some way, whether it's a planter or whatnot. I concur that it is a little bit commercial looking. So to the extent that some things can be softened a little bit, that might be also more beneficial in how it can be blended into the neighborhood. And as it regards second stories, in a neighborhood like this, where most of the homes are one story, what we try to do, we don't stop people from doing a second story, but what we try to do is have the most forward-facing elements of the house be more one story, and second story parts be pushed a little bit back, blended in, so that they're a little bit more disguised. They can still be a second story, but made so that it's not so obviously second story. And you can do lots of things with that. Like, for example, the way that the frame, as was described on the left side of the house, it actually goes up and it becomes like the rail height on the second story. That to me makes the mass of that space look like a huge, tall first story. And it doesn't necessarily have to be as tall and massive as that. If you scale that down a little bit, that might help as well. So we're looking at the whole picture, and it just appears quite massive when it relates to all of the rest of the homes on the street. I concur also about the garage location and the driveway. I think that the dominant pattern really is that those garages and driveways the driveway is narrower and the garage pushed further back. It doesn't have to go all the way to the back. It just has to be not so prominent on the facade of the house. I think that we could be satisfied with something along those lines. And I think on the side, the fenestration issue on the side, I hear both sides of that. I think Ms. Toledo's comment about additional fenestration on the side would probably be right, and Board Member Smith, it does seem a little blank on those sides, even though it's well broken up, but not a lot of light coming into the house from the side. So I think that you could benefit by having some additional windows placed on the sides as you're redesigning this. And then finally, obviously, we have the issue of these oak trees. We have to definitely have a condition added that you're going to have to deal with those oak trees. That is, again, the law in the city. Those are protected, so you're going to have to work with those. So I think that's about it for my comments. Largely, I think staff did their job. I think they did a great effort here and really tried to address things that can be helpful to the applicant as they go for a revision to the design. So that concludes my comments. Anyone want to move something forward here?
I have one question. I have one thing to clarify.
Yeah, unfortunately, we really can't do that right now. You'll have to get clarifications with staff afterwards. But I think that we're trying to design, a package here of conditions and recommendations for you to carry on with. So, okay, does somebody want to add to the conversation or to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have some thoughts. As the four board members have really spoken about the project, there seems to be more or less quite a bit of agreement on the general direction, right? There was some minor deviances with thoughts, etc., about some of the side elevations, demonstrations, but in general, there seems to be some cohesive thought. There are 14 conditions for the return for redesign as suggested by staff. Some of them I think we all agreed with and mentioned at one point or another, and then some, as I'm looking over it, I think weren't really in line with kind of what we were talking about or the direction we're taking. And so I do think that this project should be a return for redesign to really give the applicant an opportunity to put it all together. And I think there are some common denominators with our thought process, and then some of the other conditions I think are might take away from the ability of the applicant to kind of navigate through this redesign. I think in general, the design and the contemporary language of the design is agreeable. Overall, I personally don't have an issue with the roof line or the way that sculptural roof line kind of integrates into the home. But as we've said, the height is an issue. The balconies are an issue. The garage location needs to be reoriented. And part of the front facade might really need to be reintegrated with a sculptural flair to integrate the garage better further into the site. Those are, I think, general conditions that I would suggest as a form of a return for redesign with those kind of thoughts. And then we could pick and choose some of these other conditions, but I think if we overwhelm it with too many conditions, we're then prescribing a direction which I could tell the applicant does not want to go down, and I don't think we want him to go down that route. So those are my thoughts.
Does anyone else have any thoughts that you want to add to that discussion?
It would be helpful for staff if we could, if there are any conditions from staff that you want to eliminate, and I'm not sure scanning them, it seems they kind of capture parts of what you've said, but maybe we'll have to reword them. But if you could let me know if there's anything first to just delete, that would be helpful. And then I want to make sure that Mr. Simonian's kind of summary there captured everything, because I wasn't sure if I heard from at least a couple of commissioners to push back the second floor at the front. And I know that's at least over the whole garage section. I know we need to rework. I wasn't sure if that extended to the roof over the front deck that sort of is in line with the first floor. If you wanted, and you also mentioned that that deck was rather large and might be reconsidered.
That would be my opinion. Yes, is that if we could figure out a way to have the prominence of the second story and the height as it presents at the immediate facade line, front facade line could be pushed back and used as a transition between the one-story predominance form in the neighborhood and the second story addition that they're looking to add. Okay.
The other thing I didn't hear any mention of, and it wasn't shown in one of the renderings, but the right side of the house is rather vertical, and that's something the board usually doesn't go with. So I just want to make sure it wasn't overlooked.
No, that is correct. I think that there was a couple of people who mentioned that it was rather boxy and vertical there, and not as in keeping with the sculptural aspect of the rest of the design. So that it should be reworked.
Okay, so to capture the concept of left versus right, if they do something more similar to what's happening on the left side, at the right side, especially with an eye toward breaking up the box to some degree, that would be good with the board.
Yeah, and lessening that massing at the front facade.
Okay.
And
And then our,
I think what we were talking about was continuing, was them reworking the symmetry of that right side. It's too balanced when the rest of the house has a very clearly defined asymmetry and tension.
yeah, my takeaway from the discussion was that we'll try to bring some of the sculptural aspects to the right side as well, and definitely try to keep that tension alive across the facade and then wrapping toward the sides.
If I could, I don't think that it needs to have the sculptural element, just to maintain the tension between vertical and horizontal that's on the left side, bring that to the right side and reimagine how those bays are configured, as well as condition number 4. I think we can just rewrite, which is eliminating the attached garage at the front, and word this a little bit less prescriptively.
So, what I heard is the board is not opposed to an attached garage if it were pushed back further and differential to the mass of the front part of the house? Or would you rather see it pushed back considerably, but maybe just not all the way to the back of the lot?
I don't think it needs to be prescriptive in that, but that it needs to be detailed in such a way that it's not so prominent, and to consider moving it back, if that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, and then let me just, we like the colors, we like the, and there was consensus on lowering the height of the house, bringing it down to grade. Or close to grade.
I think that would help. I don't necessarily think we need to prescribe it, but I think it would. I think Mr. Simone was correct that it would help lessen that overall massiveness.
So would that be a I'm thinking in terms of how we write this up and then how we work with the applicant before we come back to you. Would that be a consideration then?
I think it should be a consideration. And I was trying to speak earlier, but I had my mute on, so I'm just not going to turn on my mute and keep myself unmuted the whole time. In regards to the garage, I think what you're hearing from the board is it should be moved back, but I'm not hearing that we want it pushed all the way to the rear of the lot. If it's integrated in such a way that it's pushed back, the second floor is slightly pushed back as well, in a way kind of creating an offset, lower the monumentality of the building in a sense, which could be achieved by removing the stairs or other ways, such as lowering the entry canopy so it's not as monumental of a 10-foot high, which is, as Board Member Welch has suggested, or I mentioned, eliminating the steps. There are different ways to do it. And so we don't want to prescribe this to the architect. We're just saying these are 2 suggestions that you may want to consider to accommodate that goal. He may come up with a 3rd option, and that's fine. What I'm saying is, when I'm looking at the rendering, and if we got to push back the 2nd level, if you're getting rid of the balcony and you just get rid of the roof line above the entry, the 2nd roof line, and that gets pushed back a bit, all of a sudden there is a tremendous kind of a setback on the 2nd floor. And now you got to work with the garage aspect. If you're bringing already some of the sculptural elements to the garage side of things, then it's going to change anyway. So you got to look at this holistically. And that's why I was kind of suggesting overall thoughts. And I think the designer and architect understands where we're coming from and is going to take this wholeheartedly, because it's just going to save him more time and money. You don't want to come back and then get pushed back again. So you want to make an effort and integrate these thoughts when you come back. And I think he certainly understands what we're saying, I believe.
Okay, so we're okay with the height of the house, but it could go down if they choose.
To make it a little easier for them, right? It won't be as monumental, it won't be as big.
No, I understand. I'm just, I'm trying to, this is more complicated than some of our discussions. So I want to make sure I capture everything.
Yeah, my concern was not necessarily the total height. It was just how that height is, that massing of that height is representing it at the street.
Okay, so it's the sense of monumentality, the sense of mass at the front. So I've got that pretty clear. And I think, yeah, everywhere, unless you guys have anything that you just missed, I think we're good on our end.
Okay. Yep, go ahead, Board Member Smith.
If we could write a condition that addresses the color of glass to reconsider the gray glass and its use, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
So a consideration for recoloring or considering a different glass color.
I heard a condition, so.
I like a strong condition.
I'm sorry?
I like a clear condition.
A clear glass condition. Clear as glass. If everyone's okay with that, we'll do that. The garage door, we'll wait to see what happens with the redesign, but I hear that you're not necessarily opposed to a glazed garage door.
The overall language is fine. It just needs to be reworked and massaged a bit, but the language is fine.
Okay.
But do make sure we are adding that oak tree condition. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so now that Jay feels he's got clarity around these conditions, can somebody make a motion? Yes,
Mr. Chair, can I ask one question?
Yes.
On some of the other suggested conditions by staff, the more general ones like, again, for conversation purposes, like submit a cut sheet for the driveway or pavers, provide sections showing like a window opening within a clad or stucco wall, etc. Those conditions, would you still want them to be included? I would assume.
Oh, yes.
So.
Yeah, I assume so. Yes. Yes, Board Member Smith, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I move that we return it for redesign with these conditions and recommendations as we've just discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
That was a motion by Board Member Smith to return for redesign, and it was a second by Board Member Chagayan. Board Member Smith?
Aye.
Board Member Chagayan?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
And Chair Welch?
Yes.
And motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that was the last item on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We have no other items on the agenda. So with that said, I'm not sure.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.